I'm going to go ahead and get started, everybody. It's great to meet you. My name is Danny Torbett. I'm the Analyst Relations Manager for Decisions. What does that mean? I'm the guy that talks to Gartner and Forrester and all those different agencies that rate different software platforms. But I'm also good at webinars, so here I am. But luckily, I brought a smart guy with me. I've got Derek Hippa here, who is the head of our revenue operations team here at Decisions. And today is the final in a series of webinars that we've been doing around how we're using ChatGPT in our customer journey. That means different things to different people. But before we get into that, I wanted to take care of a couple of housekeeping items really quick. We do amazing live training events, intensive deep dive 3-day training events, and we do them all over the world. We're getting ready to have another one April 23rd through the 25th in Hyderabad. So if you're in India, please come see us there. Then we're having another one here in Virginia Beach, where our headquarters is. There's a beautiful shot of our ocean front. And this one, we will be premiering version 9 of our Decisions platform. So really exciting. That'll be May 14th through the 16th. And then in Stockholm, May 28th through the 30th with our partner Zytac. So check those out at decisions.com/events. We'd love to see you at one of them. They're really great. We get together our customers and prospects with our founders and developers and engineers and talk about exciting use cases and train on the platform. So especially that we're rolling out V9, we'd love to see you there. Excuse me. While you're there, go ahead and register for the next webinars that are coming up. The first one, accelerating use cases with our solutions team on Tuesday, March the 26th. We'll share the latest project available in the Decisions App Store, which is the Playback Activity Manager, a tool to quickly spin up dynamic tasking projects like an IT ticketing system, for instance. A lot of you probably don't know, but we have our own app store. We have a lot of great customers with interesting use cases. And if we hear those use cases over and over again, we build apps, essentially, that are the building blocks for you to take those applications and then customize them to fit your business so you're not starting from scratch with every project. The next one is one that I'll be leading. Well, I kind of lead all of them, but this one's near and dear to my heart, as we'll be working with Quadrant Knowledge Solutions, one of the analysts that I've been working with. And we were featured in their digital decisioning platform study last year. We're going to talk a little bit about how we stack up in the marketplace against other business rules and decisioning applications. And then in April, we'll continue this quick wins series that we're diving into now on how Decisions harnesses ChatGPT to analyze support tickets, automating ticket creation, assignment, and even queue building. So register for all of the upcoming events that we have in the queue here at decisions.com/events. And this is just a sneak peek of the Sparks Matrix for Digital Decisioning Platforms 2023, the study that we're mentioned in as a technology leader against some really big heavy hitter competitors of ours. If you'd like to see that, you can just check out. We'll drop the URL into the Slack, and it's right on our homepage. If you go to decisions.com and scroll to the very bottom is where all of our analyst reports are. So take a look there. Finally, before we jump into the good stuff, you don't have to wait till the end. If you have a question, we've got lots of folks on from Decisions here to answer those questions for you in live time. So please just pop them into chat for us. And of course, we'll save some time for Q&A at the end, but we want to make sure that we get the information to you as quickly as possible. Quick look over the agenda. We're going to talk about the customer lifecycle, and what that means at Decisions. Your mileage may vary depending on the business that you're in, but it's essentially the same story that most businesses have to deal with. Then we'll talk a little, I'll give you a little preview of Decisions and what the platform is. We'll talk about our OpenAI module, and then we'll dive into how we use it to automate invoicing. Derek is a specialist in this, built this application. He's actually going to show us behind the scenes how it's built, how it runs, and show us the outputs of it. And then we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A at the end. So this is the end of the customer cycle webinar series. And basically the customer lifecycle webinar series kind of summarizes for us what the journey is for us as we go out into the market and target prospects, how we bring them in and have meaningful conversations with them about their business and how decisions can help them do business better. And then convert them to customers and then keep them as customers and nurture them over the time so they're happy and stay with us for a long time. Your mileage may vary, as I said, depending on the business that you're in, but this is typically what it looks like for most businesses going out and getting new customers. So these are all of the different webinars that we've done, and all of them are available right now on demand at decisions.com customer lifecycle. We'll drop that in the chat as well, except for today's, which we're going to go through and do a little bit of beauty touch up on my face that's made for radio. And that one will be out in a couple of days as well. So first, before we get started, what is Decisions? Decisions is a no-code application development platform where you can build enterprise-class applications without writing a single line of code. These are the elements of the platform, and the first and the core of the platform is our rules engine. It's an enterprise-class capable rules engine. It's capable of millions of transactions per day, and not just using simple Boolean logic, but truth tables and matrix rules, rule chains, rule sets, about 8 different types of rules. And really the only qualification that you need to be able to build the logic for any enterprise class application is to be able to write a sentence or fill out a spreadsheet. The second element is our workflow manager. If you're familiar with platforms like Lucidchart or Visio, it's a very similar build experience in that you have a Windows toolbar across the top with all the usual suspects, but on the left-hand side of our Designer Studio is where we've compiled a list of over 5,000 custom code steps that a user simply drags and drops onto a canvas to build applications by linking those objects together. The platform is self-validating you, so it's coaching you and giving you advice as you're building these applications. And you debug them right in the same studio without compiling any code. So you can check your work as you go along. Dramatically improves the time to solution. The third element is process mining. We give you tools to be able to iterate and optimize processes that you build by identifying bottlenecks in those processes or unexpected user behaviors in an application, for instance. The fourth element is our integration layer. Decisions comes with about 70 or so pre-built modules for the most common business applications out there. Things that you're already using in your tech stack, like Salesforce and Dynamics, Office 365, or SharePoint, or DocuSign. We bring all of those together. And on top of that, Decisions is an open API platform, which means it can communicate with any modern software application. We also come with the .NET SDK if you have a legacy system. If you're interested in any of those integrations that we may have, pop them into chat and we'll get you an answer lickety split. Can't believe I said lickety split. I'm so old. The final element of Decisions is our interface designer. So we give you the tools to build unique customer experiences and user interfaces through things like web pages, dashboards, portals, report, really brilliant visualizations. So let's talk about the 3 main patterns of automation that Decisions fulfills. The first is a pure business rules or decisioning application. Our rules engine gives you a place to centralize business logic and then expose that logic to business users to edit and maintain using graphical design tools. It gets the logic out of stored procedures, web pages, custom code, your employees' heads, and puts it in a place where you can easily change it and maintain it without diving into any code. The rules engine, like I said, it's enterprise class. It's capable of millions of transactions a day across thousands of rules in areas like medical claims processing, insurance underwriting, mortgage processing, things like that. The next use case is what we call extend and expand. It's really common when we work with a customer that already has some major out-of-the-box projects, but that need to be part of their automation solution. That can be CRM systems or ERPs, databases, or other kind of products that are built to handle part of your business process. Decisions is designed to integrate with these out-of-the-box solutions and automate the special processes that these systems don't do well, things like human-in-the-loop approval processes. And to do this, we have several different ways to integrate with your existing system landscape. We have several out-of-the-box integrations, as I mentioned, but most importantly, we're an open API platform, which you can connect literally to anything. taking the previous step a little bit further, we often act as an orchestration layer between different applications. So if you have several different applications that you have users and data in, you can use decisions as a kind of middleware to bring everything together in from one application to trigger an activity for a user in another application or populate an outcome in yet another. Our most common use case is to act as that orchestration layer between various software applications and services, and then engage end users in workflows that cross those application boundaries. One final plug before we get to the good stuff. Really, if any of this is interesting to you, the best way to learn more about decisions is to actually spend some time with one of our sales engineers to see how decisions can help you do business better, faster, stronger, sweeter, all of those things. Contact us at sales@decisions.com, or just raise your hand in chat and let someone know that you're interested in taking a demo, and we'd be happy to arrange that for you while we're in our section today. So in Q2 of 2023, Decisions launched its OpenAI module, giving our customers the ability to use the Decisions platform to orchestrate workflows and applications that leverage large language models. OpenAI is the first module that we've released, but we're currently researching several others, as we think that the market will probably land on a blend of different ones. But the first one that we launched was the OpenAI module. As I said, came out in Q2 of 2023. All you need to do to find that in the application is just go into administration, down into features, and then install that module, and you'll be able to leverage the OpenAI ChatGPT 4. So Derek, let's talk a little bit about invoicing, how we handle invoicing at Decisions. How long you've been with us for about 4 years? I've been with us for about 3 years. I would imagine that this process has changed a lot since we've been, at Decisions. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Danny. Yeah, I mean, if you think about how many people do it, like today we have QuickBooks, and essentially the process that we had in place was vendors would pretty much give us their invoice by email. We had emails such as accounts payable to Decisions, and any invoice that came up, they would email that email address. So we had a couple of people on our finance team that would monitor that inbox and then essentially take that invoice and plug it into QuickBooks. There's I'm sure many different people, like similar sized companies, have a similar process. If you have like a really expensive tool such as like NetSuite or, something even greater than that, like some of that already might be built into the tools. But for us here, there's a lot of manual work that kind of goes into getting these invoices directly into our QuickBooks system. But so yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I keep stepping all over you. I'm sorry, Derek.
No, you're fine.
Just a quick question. That sounds kind of like a nightmare. Like there could be a lot of manual error and a lot cut, copy, and paste, and it sounds like it could get kind of out of hand.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, if you think about how many invoices we get every single month, it's probably around 100, maybe 100 plus range. So there's 100 invoices that come in through email. We have someone manually that would go through that inbox and plug them directly into QuickBooks. Anytime there's any manual entry, things happen. Like I got fat fingers. I mistype words all the time. I hit an extra zero. So of course there's always that issue with having, manual errors. But on top of it, that can be very time consuming. With 100 invoices every month, that could come down to, 8+ hours. Sometimes these are a little more complex. Like imagine you had an invoice with, 17 to 18 line items. You have to put each one of those into QuickBooks. So 8 hours is rough estimate. Just depending on how many invoices you're doing, it could be a lot longer. So that's a lot of time and resource.
Is that a typical month for us? Oh, we're not a gigantic company, right? We're not IBM or Pegasystems or Appian or any of the other
Yeah.
solutions that cost 5 times as much as us, right?
Yeah. I would say it's around, 100. And as we grow, I'm sure that number is going to climb with it. So that's more
Mm-hmm.
time, more resources. But yeah, I think the estimate time is about 8 hours a month, and just manually plugging the stuff directly into QuickBooks.
Gotcha. What are some of the challenges that we see beyond like the obvious, the time and the
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Are
Yeah. I know what
those
you're
like
getting at. Yeah, I mean, there's always a lot of different challenges,
Mhm.
with having like a manual process. If someone's like out of town, right, someone else has to take on the workload. But
Stacks
essentially,
up?
yeah, exactly. So there's just a lot of time and resources involved into doing this manually.
Mhm.
So pretty much like today, what we're going to show you is how we've automated that here at Decisions by using these large language models such as ChatGPT. So what's being shown here is our QuickBooks instance. This is what a bill looks like in QuickBooks. Keep in mind, we're using Google Gmail and QuickBooks. This could really be any different accounts payable system. So this could be NetSuite. This could be, an Outlook email address that we're using.
Mhm.
This is just more kind of tailored to our use case. So kind of keep that in mind as we go through it.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so what we'll actually dive into it, show you guys live what this looks like behind the scenes and how it works, but high level design. We're going to be monitoring an email inbox. So our vendors, what they do, they send the invoice directly to accounts payable at decisions.com. So we're going to be replicating that. We're going to have decisions actually read those emails going to Gmail. We're
Mhm.
going to then determine if that was an invoice. If so, it's going to extract the text and then process the information to ChatGPT to identify, the high level details about the invoice and the line items, and then plug that directly into QuickBooks for us.
Awesome.
Someone did ask, like, we get invoices in PDF, Word, scan, copy. It's a great question, right?
Hmm.
We have the same issue here at Decisions. Every single vendor is different. They have different versions of PDFs. Sometimes the invoice is in the body of the email, or maybe
Right.
it's a
Like
scan.
embedded.
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm going to show you is how we have been able to handle that dynamically because, like I said, every invoice is different, every company is different. So what we're going to show you today is how dynamic this process can be. In our example, we're going to be showing PDFs, but I'll also talk through how you could handle those different alternative options if they do come up. So what we're showing
Cool.
here is high level example of the prompt we use within ChatGPT. So you take the document text or the text from the email, you pass it
Hmm.
in ChatGPT. This is an example of the prompt that would go with it. We're trying to
Gotcha.
extract the invoice. So that includes the vendor name, number, the line items, the total, etc. This is really dependent on the use case. But good example, I think this is
Hmm.
one of the most challenging things with using these large language models is
Sure. And
building the prompt.
decisions doesn't write the prompt for you, right? I'm still waiting for that magic to come out
One day. We're
someday.
close.
It'll just
Yeah.
it'll just plug right into my brain and I won't have to do anything.
Yeah. So
Well, that's pretty
decision.
cool.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, decisions is great at the connection, the orchestration, like you said earlier.
Hmm.
Um, there is still a manual piece where you gotta like do trial and error with the prompt. We've been doing it for over a year now. This is enhanced version of what we showed in the past, but
Okay.
this prompt works very well for us.
Cool. Cool. Can you show us?
Yeah, yeah, you ready to see it?
Yeah, yeah, I'm dying to see it. Let me stop sharing.
All right, very good. Let me share my screen. Can you confirm that you see this? All right,
Big
very
thumbs
good.
up.
All right, so what I'm showing you here is Gmail. So this is the Google emails. In here, you can see that there's a couple different emails that came through. These are actually invoices, and this is my personal Gmail account. So again, in this process, we're going to be using Google and QuickBooks. You could really interchange these. This could be Outlook for the email provider that you guys use. And then on the opposite end for the accounts payable system, it could be NetSuite or anything else, as long as there's a integration between the two. So essentially, the goal is to take a couple of these emails and then automatically plug them directly into QuickBooks. So what I'm going to do is open an example of what an invoice looks like. So this is a PDF that will actually be attached to the email. So here it is from Workable. So you can kind of see the high level details that make up this invoice and then the line items associated with it. So really, if I were to manually do this, I would get this email, I would look at the invoice, and then I would copy paste into QuickBooks or plug it in by just typing. So Workable is one example we'll use today. And then another example that we have is a bill that came in from Dell. So very similar. You can see it's like completely different format. So again, every vendor's different. The invoices look different. The way they send them to you is different. So same thing. The goal is to take this invoice, extract all the information, and then have it automatically plug into QuickBooks for us. So
Yeah, we wish everyone would standardize. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. If everyone standardized, this would be easy. But unfortunately, it's not. So this is why we have a process, especially tying into a large language model, to be able to help us out here. So the way that this job works, it's looking for unread emails. So what I'm going to do is just mark both of these emails as unread. And what's going to happen is the workflow is actually going to be able to pick this up directly and then plug them into QuickBooks. So before I actually go into the workflow, I'm going to show you QuickBooks, sandbox environment, kind of ignore the data in here. But I just want to highlight that there's no current bills in here. So the objective of this is to take these two separate invoices, one from Workable, another one from Dell, and then automatically plug them into our QuickBooks instance. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm excited.
Very good. All right, so what I'm showing here is our Decisions Workflow Studio. So Danny mentioned earlier, we have thousands of steps. So you can see our toolbox on the left-hand side. And this is essentially our workflow that's going to be doing all the hard work for us. So it looks very simple, but there is some complexity within it, and we'll walk through it as it runs. So within Decisions, you have the ability to debug or run a workflow live, and you could see how it goes through each step. So this is very powerful for like a visual interface and really trying to see how this process runs to identify any issues as it goes through it.
This is one of my favorite parts about our platform. Being able to debug as you build saves so much time.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, so I just kicked it off. This process is going to take a second to run. There's a lot of things it's doing. So we'll walk through it as it goes. So really this first step is to read those emails from that inbox. Essentially, this is reading my email inbox. So we have a rule in place to determine if it's an invoice or not. I get a lot of junk, so there's a lot of spam. But really the first step, this is a step in Decisions. This is reading the email headers, which is like the subject, does have attachments. This is pointed to Google. Again, you could point this to Outlook or AOL. It doesn't matter. It's same step, just kind of different configuration. So after it goes through the emails, what it's going to do is say, hey, is this an invoice? I have a rule in place. This is where it'll actually open up the email and then read the content. So the body is going to open those attachments, determine what they are. And then we're going to add them to a list to then use later on down the road. So after it determines the emails, what it's going to do is then run through each email. So in this example, we have attachments. But like I mentioned earlier, every vendor is different. Maybe it's in the body. We actually have the ability to then just process the email here. That will still do the same process, but it just doesn't have an attachment. So we have the ability to dynamically handle this. So once it determines that, it's going to go through each attachment, and then this is when it's going to, extract the text and everything from that point on. So kind of diving into it, so you can kind of see I'm going into the workflows here. So the first step is actually extracting the text from that PDF or that document. It could be a Word document, doesn't matter. But this one actually has a file attachment. We have steps and decisions to get text from PDFs. But in our use case, we actually use Google AI OCR. It's very powerful. It's able to read text from images, which our steps are not able to do. So sometimes these could be scanned, which we have a limitation in our steps. So we had to find an alternative method, and Google AI OCR is very powerful. So once we get the text, we then pass it into ChatGPT. ChatGPT is taking all of this unstructured data, right? I'll show you what this looks like. So the document text comes back as just like all this free text. It's unstructured. ChatGPT is very powerful at taking unstructured data and putting it into a structured format. And that's the whole purpose of using it. It's extracting all that information for us. And then it puts it into a structured format that we could then use later on. So you can see that structured text was passed into a known object. And then this is what it kicks off the QuickBooks flow. So a couple of things happening here, right? Really the first piece of it is we're checking if this vendor already exists within our process or within our QuickBooks instance. If that vendor does not exist, we do have the ability to create them directly through this workflow. So it would send out a assignment to someone on our finance team, say, hey, this looks like a new vendor that doesn't exist. Do you want to create it now? And you do have the option to say, the large language model made a mistake. This vendor exists, and you have the ability to select it. So we could look into that a little later. So the next,
interesting. I want to interrupt. Interesting
yeah.
question. Could it read a password? Could it read password protected attachments? I would suppose if you had the password, right, from the vendor, you could probably put a rule in there to add password.
Yeah, I think it depends on how it comes in. Sometimes these would be password protected. Like say that, like, for example, the email, you actually have to go to another system to pull that attachment. We could put in a custom integration to do that. We do have steps within decisions to open like Word documents with passwords. So there is really, depending on the use case, there's some multiple different options there for you. But yes, we can. Like simple answer, yes. Just really depending on the use case, there might be some things that we need to add into this workflow to be successful there. But so after, after it checks if there's a vendor, right? In this example, the vendor already exists in QuickBooks. It then tries to check to make sure that this bill doesn't already exist. We don't want to be creating duplicates. So the next piece is we try to query the bill by that invoice ID. If that bill exists, it's going to skip the rest of the process. In this use case, we haven't seen this bill yet, so it's going to continue through the process. So we do have the ability to skip it. Sometimes people reply to an email. This job's going to think of that as a new email. We don't want it to actually create another bill and create duplicates. So when everything checks out, we just kind of go through the process of formatting it. We push it directly to QuickBooks. Email notification will go out saying, hey, there's a new bill, go double check it. And that's really it to this process. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to jump over our QuickBooks instance and I'll show you what just happened. So let me refresh the screen. All right, so now you can see there's two bills. Jumping back to the email really quickly. So the original two emails that were unread are now marked as read. So part of the process is going to read that email. That's when it opens it. You can see the two new emails that just came in for those bills. So this is an example of the email notification that I would get. There's a direct link to the bill itself that I could open it. And this would go to our finance team to verify that everything is correct. All right, so let's jump into this. So you can see there's two new bills, bills, Workable and Dell, the two examples that we showed earlier. So by clicking that first one, which was Workable, it's going to open up the vendor itself, and then you'll see this new bill in here. So what I'm going to do is actually click this bill. And then you can see that it was able to automatically populate all of the different details about that invoice. So there's two line items here. We had a rule within decisions to determine the category automatically. So this is pretty powerful, right? Everyone has different categories. This is like, again, I'm not a finance expert here. My finance team might yell at me, but essentially, to my understanding, the category is like how this would come out of our budget, right? Depending on like if it was prepaid, for example, like say that it's on a reoccurring payment, it would have a different category. But for this example, this is like a software, so we'll just
As
keep
long
it
as
as
it's not
such.
coming out of my budget.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see it
Exactly.
actually, yeah, no, I'm right there with you. But yeah, it was able to populate the bill date, the due date, the address, the vendor, the bill number, the invoice ID, and the each individual line item with the descriptions associated. So first example, right? This is the Workable bill. What I'm going to do is go back one more time. And now we're going to take a look at the Dell bill. They say they're overdue. We pay our bills on time. This is
We
a
do.
sandbox. Well, hopefully, but
We
yeah.
always pay on time.
Yeah, so ignore this as a sandbox environment, but just in case if anyone was curious why we're almost 600 days overdue. All right, so similar situation, right? Here's the vendor. When we jump into the bill in this use case, what you can see, it did the same thing. It was able to populate everything. The one thing to note here, we can go back and look at the invoice. This one had tax associated with it. So, kind of stepping back just 1 second, let me show you what this invoice looks like. So in here, this is what the line item is. It just gives us a unit price and it tells us the quantity. And the amount comes out to $4,000 or roughly five. But there's tax associated with this line item. The way QuickBooks works is it has to apply the tax at the line item. So, if I'm looking at this manually, I got to determine what that tax is by doing math, and then I got to plug it into QuickBooks. Because the
But
amount is a little
ChatGPT
off.
sees it
Yeah.
and just moves it over for you.
So ChatGPT is great problem solving. So when you come across use cases like this, you could actually have ChatGPT apply the tax per line item. So imagine there's like 10 line items here and
Right.
there was tax and each one had tax.
Need to be
It's a lot of
broken out
math.
by one. You're getting out the calculator.
Exactly. So ChatGPT is actually smart enough to be able to solve problems, and it was able to successfully apply tax for us at this line item level. So you can see this is the total amount, but on the actual invoice itself, it said $4,990. So really powerful
Wow.
by using a large language model to be able to help determine this for you.
I love that. We got some great questions, and I wanted to make sure I got to some of these. So, do you have Mickey Ward asked this? Do you have any default workflows that we can take and then edit, rebuild? I.e., we would have a similar workflow we'd like to mirror here, but we work with GP, not QuickBooks. But otherwise, same concept would be true. The answer to that one is absolutely yes. As we had mentioned kind of earlier in the presentation, we have an app store. We have lots of different clients with lots of interesting use cases, and the ones that we hear over and over are ones that we build apps for, and they're exactly as you described, kind of like building blocks to take and then customize to your business. And that really could just be changing that endpoint from GP over, from QuickBooks to GP. So yes is the answer to that one. There were a couple other great ones in here. Baraj had a question about performance. Have we done load testing with a huge influx of invoices? You heard 100 a month, but really, what if it's 100 or 1.5 million a month? So from performance perspective, I can give you kind of a scenario of one of our large insurance clients. They need to be able to do financial auditing of every financial transaction across this $40 billion a year insurance company within a 90-minute time frame if they get financially audited by a large regulatory body. Millions and millions and millions of transactions that they need to be able to run across an auditing logic of over 8,000 rules. And I think we've got that SLA down to about 90 minutes now of a year's worth of data. So it truly is enterprise class. Another performance indicator that I always like to talk about is the system, our standard platform can handle 14,000 API calls per second. So I hope that answers your question a little bit more.
Yeah,
I
I
think
could
there was
provide
another one. Go ahead.
I could provide a little more context on like this process alone in regards to
Mm-hmm.
like performance. Like what I'm showing here is that it's going one by one through each invoice. Like say that like the inbox has like hundreds of invoices at one time, like massive. Just think about your whole screen filled with new invoices.
Mm-hmm.
You could have the ability to run all of those in parallel to each other. So it helps reduce the amount of time it takes to get
Mm-hmm.
into that system. When you work with large language models like such as OpenAI, they can be kind of slow time to time. And it's really limitations with the models themselves, but they've been very accurate. So
Mm-hmm.
even though they may take, 10 to 20 seconds to rip through an invoice, you have that accuracy. So that little bit of delay, I don't think it's going to matter as much. I mean, there's just not a lot you could do in regards to the time communicating with a large language model due to their limitations. It's not essentially our limitations of decisions, it's
Right.
the large language models. But overall, like this is way quicker than we would have been able to do it manually. So
Way quicker, much lower like human error rates. Um, and if you think about it from a scale perspective, as Baraj had mentioned, and I hope I didn't slaughter your name twice now that I've called it out, attempted to say it. Forgive me if I did. But 8 hours of labor for a small company like ours that has 100 invoices a month, that doesn't really make that's not really even a drop in the ocean. But if you're a large insurer or a large bank or a mortgage processor, or in supply or logistics or manufacturing or distribution or shipping or any of those businesses where there's a really high volume of invoicing, this could really be a game changer where you'd be able to. Another thing I think Baraj also had a question about duplicate checking, error handling, things like that. We all want to achieve straight through processing, right? The nirvana of automation. Straight through process is a digital transaction that requires absolutely zero manual intervention. But yes, as large language models are developed and are continuing to innovate, you definitely want to have someone spot checking or by some sort of algorithmic formula doing a little bit of quality assurance on this process to make sure that you're not leaving any gaps.
yeah, and on top of that, like in regards to error handling within the workflow,
Mm-hmm.
there are certain spots where we're able to have error handling where it's able to correct itself as well. So like within this workflow, for
Mm-hmm.
example, I'm asking ChatGPT to extract all of those line items for me
Mm-hmm.
in a specific format. Sometimes it fails. I have the
Mm-hmm.
ability to then plug it back into ChatGPT and say, hey, I need this in this format. and it'll typically correct itself. So we have like error handling in here. This typically resolves the problem second time with some of the results we get from ChatGPT. So yeah, there's error handling built within the workflow, but there's also, that Q&A check that Danny was talking about of making sure that the results that were plugged into QuickBooks are accurate.
David just had a question relevant to that. David, I hope that answered your question. Absolutely. Error handling and exception handling, all steps that are available in the platform, and what you can customize the reactions to that error handling and kick off additional workflows or simply rerun processes, as Derek described with these large language models. Often that clears up any inaccuracy.
Yeah, there was another question about, what if ChatGPT like screws up on like, placing the field in the wrong spot? A lot of that comes down to the prompt, right? So if you start noticing that it's misplacing a certain description for the wrong field, that's more prompt engineering. Like what I've noticed with these large language models is if you give it a really good prompt, it's going to nail it almost every single time. So a lot of times when you're dealing with like ChatGPT or these AI processes, you don't essentially train it. You focus on the prompt engineering. And the prompt engineering will give you better and better results. If you hit a point in time where the prompt engineering no longer works for your use case, then you would go and train the model. So you always focus on the prompt, enhancing it, providing it more examples, more details. And that typically will almost, like I said, like for our use case, it nails it almost every single time. There's like spots where it may mess up, and all I typically have to do is go into that prompt and make a slight change, try it again, and it typically resolves it. So I think it's very powerful just using these large language models and focusing on the prompt crafting. You'll get great results. Someone I asked about the cost, like how much does it cost per invoice? So when using like, the decisions workflow, grabbing it from the email, uploading QuickBooks, there's no cost associated there besides having our platform, of course. But with the large language models, you get charged on usage. So that's like passing the information to the model and having it spit out a result. There is a usage cost, but it's really cheap.
It's not free. I thought Elon Musk was going to make it free for us all.
There are free options. But some of those models are very heavy. So like, for example, if I had an open source model here, I have to have a supercomputer to run the model on my server, which that's probably way more expensive than using a closed model such as ChatGPT and just getting charged to use it. But it's like pennies of the dollar. So, if we did hundreds of invoices, like we're looking at, pretty, not much at all, maybe a couple dollars.
Gotcha.
So,
Another question came up, and it was, how do I get this? How many emails and invoices can be processed in 1 hour? More than your heart desires if it weren't for the large language model that needs to do the processing. From a decisions platform standpoint, you could put a gazillion of these through in an hour. The processing is really kind of dependent upon the large language model at this point.
yeah.
And how complex that prompt is. Would you say that's accurate, Derek?
Yeah, I mean, there's really two pieces to it, right? You're getting the emails from the inbox, like that process alone will take a couple seconds to do because it actually has to open the body of the email. But,
And then open the attachments, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it has to like get all the information. So say you have 100 emails, right? For it to go through all 100, just like reading the emails could be, maybe like a minute or two. But then once you have all those emails, you could run everything in parallel. So they're all uploading to QuickBooks at the same time. So even though it takes a little bit to process all of the information, I mean, it's still pretty quick, like hundreds of emails within probably less than like 10 minutes, to be honest. Like
Mhm.
hundreds of emails. So if you're looking at like thousands, I mean, it could be, 30 minutes, just really depending on how complex it is.
Gotcha. Really cool. Another great solution. And is this going to be available in the App Store?
Yeah, it's a great question, Danny. We actually already have a version of this on our app store
Oh,
that's available for download for our customers. Based on what you guys saw today, this is a little more enhanced from that original process. We were doing this live within Decision, so we had to adapt it slightly to some of the different use cases. So the one that's available in the App Store is a simpler version, but you can still
mhm.
download it, make the changes, and this one in the near future will be available as well.
I love it. Really cool solution, and I love it. As we've done this series of customer journey webinars, it's been great to see the solutions that we built make it right into the App Store and right out to our customers. And they're actively using them today. Let me share really quick as we kind of wrap up here, Derek. And I just wanted to make a couple of last final plugs, everyone. I know everybody hates the analyst relations manager, but if you found this interesting today, if you think that decisions might be able to help you in your business, the best way to find out more is to reach out to us either here in chat or just email us at sales@decisions.com. Meet with one of our sales engineers so they can learn about your business and maybe think of some ways that automation with our platform can help you be better at what you do. The next webinar coming up is Tuesday, March 26th at 1, where we'll be looking at some more accelerator use cases with our solutions team from the App Store. And come see us at one of our Submerse events. Check us out again at decisions.com/events. Did anyone else have any other questions? I don't want to leave anybody hanging here. I'm looking through. Thanks so much, everybody. The URLs that I mentioned are available in the chat window as well. Thanks so much. Hey, Derek, great job, man. Thanks, buddy. I really appreciate it. It's good to spend some time with you.
Yeah, you too, Danny. Hopefully everyone enjoyed today's topic. This is a pretty cool webinar and use case, and it's something that we need here internally. So I'm sure many other companies need it as well.
Chris Bug wants to know if I will be submitting a bracket, and yes, and I have Grambling State going all the way, baby. Everybody have a great day. Thanks so much for joining us. See you soon. Thanks everyone.
All.